Title: The Mafia Boss told her to disappear forever. 5 years later, she made him earn his twins' names. Rain made honest things look guilty in Port Mercy. It slicked the sidewalk outside Reed's diner until every neon letter trembled in the puddles, and it turned the black cars at the curb into long, silent animals with tinted windows and idling engines. Savannah Reed saw them from behind the counter before anyone said a word. 3 SUVs. 6 men in dark coats. One man stepping out last, as if weather had been instructed to move around him. Damian Bellucci had not changed enough. His hair was shorter, his shoulders were broader, and the expensive black overcoat made him look less like the man who had once kissed flour from her wrist and more like the verdict he had become. Still, Savannah knew the angle of his head before she knew his face. She knew the way his right hand closed once beside his thigh when he was forcing himself not to reach for a weapon or a woman. Behind her, Lily kicked water from one red rain boot onto the mat. "Mama," she said, bright and certain, "the scary cars are back." Ethan looked up from the corner booth where he had been sorting sugar packets by color. He did not speak often when strangers arrived, but he watched everything. His gray eyes lifted to the window, narrowed with a patience no 5-year-old should have possessed, and Damian Bellucci stopped under the diner awning as if the rain had become a wall. Savannah moved before he could. She set down the coffee pot, wiped her hands on the towel tucked into her apron, and pointed toward the kitchen with 2 fingers. "Boots stay on the mat. Hands washed. Both of you behind Mr. A.L.'s counter until I say." Lily opened her mouth to argue, then saw Savannah's face and obeyed. Ethan gathered the sugar packets without being asked, tucking the blue ones into his pocket because he believed every emergency required supplies. Savannah reached the door before Damian did. She did not open it all the way. She held it with her hip in one flat palm, keeping the warm diner behind her and the rain outside where it belonged. Damian looked past her once. Only once. But that single glance found Ethan, and the world altered in his eyes. Not softened. Not broken. Altered. He saw the boy's gray eyes, the black hair that curled at the temples after rain, the stubborn set of his mouth. Then he saw Lily beside him, red boots planted apart, chin lifted like a tiny queen prepared to declare war on bad manners. "Savannah," Damian said. 5 years vanished inside the sound of her name, and Savannah hated him for having that much power over one word. "You do not get to scare them," she said, "just because you finally learned where to look." The bodyguard behind him shifted. Damian lifted 2 fingers without turning his head, and the man froze. "Are they mine?" Savannah almost laughed. Because of all the first questions he could have chosen, he had chosen the one that proved he still believed truth belonged to whoever demanded it hardest. "No," she said. His face went white under the awning light. Then she finished, colder. "Not yet." Chapter 1. The diner went quiet in layers. First the dishwasher stopped clattering plates in the back room. Then old Mr. Voss lowered his newspaper and pretended he was not listening, which meant he was listening with his entire face. At table 6, a trucker with a wet cap halfway off his head forgot to raise his coffee. Even the jukebox seemed to regret choosing a slow song. Savannah kept her body in the doorway because doors were lines, and for 5 years she had survived by deciding which lines no one crossed. "You heard me," she said. "You do not get to ask that question like you're buying a shipment." Damian's eyes returned to her face. In the old days, when she had still been foolish enough to believe she could love him without being swallowed by his world, she had watched those eyes turn enemies careful, waiters attentive, and grown men fluent in apologies. They did not plead. They did not roam. They decided. Tonight they searched. "I did not know," he said. "That is not a defense. It is a result. Savannah. Do not say my name like it explains yours." One of his men looked at the diner sign, then at the road, calculating witnesses. Savannah saw it because she had spent 5 years raising children while running a business on margins so thin they squeaked. She had learned to notice when people measured her room and forgot she owned it. "Tell your men to move the cars," she said. Damian blinked once. "They're blocking the handicap ramp, the bus stop, and Mrs. Hale's pharmacy delivery route. If your empire needs 3 SUVs to buy coffee, it can at least park like it passed kindergarten." Behind the counter, Lily whispered, "Mama said kindergarten." Ethan whispered back, "She means bad parking." Damian heard them. Savannah saw him hear them, and she saw the shock travel through his controlled body like a crack in black marble. He did not smile. Damian Bellucci had never smiled because something was charming unless he had first decided whether charm was a threat. But his hand opened at his side. "Move the vehicles," he said, still looking at Savannah. The men obeyed so fast the trucker at table 6 muttered, "Well, that's something." "You can stand there," Savannah said, pointing to the dry patch beneath the awning. "Outside. I need to talk to you." "Then talk." "Not here. Here is where I am." The rain thickened. It beat against the awning hard enough to blur the streetlights, and for a moment Damian looked less like the feared head of the Bellucci family than like a man who had arrived at the correct address 5 years late and found the house had learned to live without him. "I was told you took money from my uncle," he said. Savannah's fingers tightened on the door. "Of course you were. I was shown transfer records." "Of course you were. I saw your signature." "You saw a signature. You did not see me." That landed. She knew because Damian stopped breathing for half a second, and once, years ago, she had known every silence in him. The dangerous ones were still. The wounded ones had weight. "Mama," Lily called, "Mr. Al says the soup is doing the angry bubble thing." "Turn it to low," Savannah called back. "He says I am not allowed to touch knobs." "Then tell Mr. Al that if he wants to keep arguing with a tomato base, he can come out here and handle the mafia." Mr. Al's voice rose from the kitchen. "I heard that, and I'm too old for both." A sound moved through the diner, not quite laughter but close enough to prove the room was still alive. Savannah did not take her eyes off Damian. "You should leave," she said. "I will not leave without knowing their names. Then you'll learn patience." He looked past her again, and this time Savannah stepped into his line of sight with enough force to make the bell above the door tremble. Damian's gaze snapped back to her. She was not tall, not compared with him, and her green diner dress had a bleach mark near the hem, but she had 2 children behind her, 1 business under her name, and 5 years of practice refusing men who mistook volume for authority. "Look at me when you talk about them," she said quietly. "They are not clues. They are not proof. They are not your second chance wearing small shoes." Damian's jaw worked. "What are they?" "Mine," Savannah said. "Until you earn the right to become anything else." Chapter 2. 5 years earlier, Damian Bellucci had told her to disappear in a room that smelled of old leather, rainwater, and betrayal. Savannah had been 29 then, though she sometimes thought of that woman as younger because love had made her reckless. She had been the night manager at a hotel the Bellucci family used for quiet meetings, the kind of hotel where no one asked why a guest needed 3 exits and a private elevator. Damian had arrived one winter evening with mud on his cuff and pain hidden behind manners. He had asked for towels, not a doctor. Savannah had brought both. That was how it began, with her telling the most feared man on the eastern coast that he could bleed on the marble if he wanted, but not on the carpet she had just paid to clean. He had stared at her for 5 full seconds before allowing her to press a towel to his arm. "You talk to armed men like that?" he had asked. "Only the ones ruining my lobby." By spring, he knew she hated roses but loved cheap carnations because they lasted longer. By summer, she knew he aligned every pen on a table before making a decision. By autumn, he had stopped sending a driver and started walking her home himself, though he insisted it was because the neighborhood was dangerous and not because he wanted 10 more minutes with her. She had loved him by accident, then on purpose. She had not been naive about what he was. She knew men lowered their voices around him, and she knew his family name carried stories that never appeared in police reports. But Damian had been careful with her in ways that made carefulness feel like worship. He asked before touching her hand. He remembered how she took her coffee. He listened when she argued about his family's habit of treating women like ornamental treaties. "You cannot own loyalty," she told him once. "I can buy most kinds." "Then you have never had the good kind." He had looked at her across the kitchen table in his private apartment, his tie undone, his sleeves rolled up, as if she had translated a language he had heard all his life but never understood. "Teach me," he said. So she did, and then his world punished them both. The accusation arrived 3 days after she told him she was pregnant. Damian's uncle, Victor Bellucci, had entered Damian's study with bank papers, security stills, and a voice heavy with false regret. He claimed Savannah had accepted money from a rival family and had been passing hotel access codes through housekeeping schedules. He claimed the pregnancy was leverage. He claimed she would run before Damian could prove it. Savannah had stood in that study with one hand over her stomach and waited for Damian to ask her one question. He did not. He stood behind his desk, every pen lined perfectly before him, and he looked at the papers because paper was safer than love. "Tell me it is false," he said. "Ask me like you want the answer. Tell me. It is false. The signature is yours. The signature is shaped like mine. The account is under your mother's maiden name." Then someone did homework. He had flinched at that because she sounded too calm, and men who lived by danger often mistrusted calm women. He thought she should cry if she was innocent. He thought panic would be proof. Savannah knew that now. At the time, she had only known that the man she loved was watching her as if the children inside her were evidence in a trial he had already lost. "Leave," he said finally. "Damian. Disappear from my city before sunrise." The words struck the room so hard even Victor looked down to hide his pleasure. "If I leave," Savannah said, "it will be because I refuse to raise children in a house where their father confuses silence with judgment." He looked at her then, really looked, and for one terrible heartbeat she thought he would cross the room. He did not. He closed his right hand beside his thigh and said the sentence that lived in her bones for 5 years. Disappear forever, Savannah. So she did. She did not go to the rival family. She did not take a dime from anyone. She took the clothes she could fit into a duffel bag, the ultrasound photo from her purse, and the address of a widowed aunt in Port Mercy who had owned a failing diner and a heart too tired to ask questions. By the time Damian's men came to the hotel at dawn, the desk clerk told them Savannah Reed had left no forwarding address. That was the first lie Savannah ever allowed to protect her children. Now Damian stood outside the diner where those children lived, rain running from his coat, and Savannah wondered whether the world enjoyed symmetry or simply had no imagination. You should have looked, she said through the half-open door. I did. No. You searched for a traitor. You did not look for me. His face changed again, and this time she saw the old Damian beneath the black coat. Not softer. Never soft. But stripped of one weapon. Let me see the records, he said. You will see what I choose to show you. Savannah, if Victor did this dash. Do not make your uncle the center of my doorway. That silenced him. The children are eating dinner in 20 minutes, she continued. They have bath time at 7:30, stories at 8, and sleep at 8:30 if Lily does not negotiate like a doc lawyer. You can come back tomorrow at 10 in the morning, when they are at preschool, and I will show you enough to understand why you are standing outside. Tomorrow? Yes. You expect me to walk away tonight? I expected you to ask one question 5 years ago. We are both learning disappointment. The bell behind her jingled because Lily had abandoned instructions and padded toward the door with one red boot unlaced. Ethan followed, holding the other lace like evidence. Mama, Lily said, my boot is being dramatic. Savannah crouched without turning her back fully on Damian. Then tell it we don't reward drama after dinner. Lily studied Damian through the opening. Are you the bad parking man? Damian's eyes dropped to her face, and something dangerous in him surrendered its shape. He crouched slowly, stopping at Savannah's glance before lowering himself to the wet pavement outside the threshold. Yes, he said. I parked badly. Lily nodded, satisfied. You should say sorry to the ramp. Lily, Savannah said, though she did not try very hard. Damian looked toward the handicap ramp. Rain streaked down his face, but he did not wipe it away. I am sorry to the ramp, he said. Ethan tilted his head. Ramps don't hear. Then I am sorry to the people who need it. Ethan considered this with grave suspicion. Better. Savannah felt the moment turn, and because she was not foolish anymore, she closed the door before tenderness could disguise itself as fate. Chapter 3. Damian returned at 9:50 the next morning with no motorcade. That was not the same as humility, but Savannah gave him 1 point for strategy. He arrived in one black car, parked legally across the street, and entered the diner without a bodyguard at his shoulder. His coat was dry, his suit was charcoal, and his expression suggested he had spent the night reading every mistake he had ever made in a language he disliked. Savannah poured coffee for table 2 before acknowledging him. You're early. 10 minutes. Then sit for 10 minutes. He looked toward the counter, where 2 red rain boots sat upside down on yesterday's newspaper, drying near the register. Lily had decorated the left boot with a sticker of a moon. Ethan had tied a blue sugar packet to the right one as a warning flag because he believed the boot had entered slip territory. Damian saw them and stopped. They leave them here, he asked. Only when the floor is wet. They have indoor shoes in their cubbies. Cubbies? Yes. Children use them. Try not to audit the concept. The corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile, and Savannah hated that she noticed. She led him to the last booth after the breakfast rush thinned. It had a view of the kitchen door, the front entrance, and the hall to the bathrooms. Damian noticed. Men like him always did. Savannah noticed him noticing and slid into the seat opposite him because 5 years of running a diner had not made her less tactical. She placed a folder on the table. Copies, she said. The originals are somewhere safer. Where? If I trusted you with that, we would not be starting with copies. He accepted the answer without argument, which frightened her more than argument would have. Damian Bellucci had built a life around command, and he had never liked being handled. This morning he let Savannah set the pace. He opened the folder. The first page was the hospital record from the night Ethan and Lily were born. Savannah watched him read the date, the time, the weights, the emergency notes, and the line where father had been left blank because she had refused to write a lie and refused to give a truth to a world that might use it. His hand went still. Twins, he said. Yes. Were they early? 7 weeks. His eyes closed once, brief and controlled. Were you alone? Savannah thought of the white room, the machines, Aunt June's hand in hers, the nurse telling her to breathe while she wondered whether Damian would ever know his children existed. She thought of Lily arriving furious and loud, Ethan arriving quiet and blue around the lips, and the doctor saying they needed the neonatal unit in a voice that made Savannah understand terror as a place with fluorescent lights. I was not alone, she said. I had people who believed me. He absorbed the blade because he deserved it. The next pages were letters, each returned. Savannah had written them during the first year. Not love letters. She had not allowed herself that weakness. They were factual, dated, and written in the cleanest language she could manage while sleep-deprived. Damian, the babies were born on August 14th. They are alive. I am alive. I did not betray you. If you want proof, ask me before you send anyone else. Damian, Lily has your temper and my appetite. Ethan watches doors before entering rooms. That worries me. Damian, someone is intercepting messages. I do not know whether it is your family or mine, but if you receive this, answer through Aunt June's lawyer. Returned. 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 He read every envelope. I never received these. I know. How do you know? Because the first one came back with an internal family routing stamp from Bellucci Security. That meant someone inside your house decided you should not see it. He lifted the envelope and saw the mark. His face did not change, but the air around him did. Savannah had watched storms gather over water. They looked calm until the boats began turning back. Victor, he said. Probably. Probably. I do not accuse without proof. I learned that from your worst day. His eyes rose to hers. I deserve that. You deserve more than that, but I have a lunch rush in 30 minutes. He looked at the next document, a bank record showing the fraudulent transfer, then the forensic analysis Savannah had paid for over 4 years in installments. The handwriting expert's conclusion was cautious but clear. The signature had been traced from a hotel tax form. The account had been opened with stolen identification. The money had been moved twice, then withdrawn by someone connected to a shell company Victor controlled. You investigated this yourself, Damian said. No. I waited 5 years eating soup from dented cans and hoping truth would develop manners. He looked at her. Yes, Damian. I investigated it myself. How did you pay for this? With tips, extra shifts, and a very ugly winter when the freezer broke. His hand closed on the edge of the folder. There was the violence everyone feared in him, but none of it pointed at her. It turned inward first, which was new, then outward toward the men who had used his pride as a locked door. I will handle Victor. Not today. Savannah. Not today, she repeated. Today you will finish reading, ask questions like a grown man, and leave before preschool pickup. They do not know who I am. They know you are the bad parking man. His mouth tightened. Do they know anything else? They know some men are dangerous because they shout, and some are dangerous because everybody gets quiet when they enter. They know both kinds must follow house rules. And what are your rules for me? Savannah leaned back. She had practiced this in her head for 5 years, though the practice had never included how his grief would look under diner lights. You do not meet them as their father today. You do not give gifts. You do not send men to watch the diner unless I ask. You do not investigate my staff, frighten my customers, buy my building, pay my debts, or solve my life like it is an unpaid invoice. Your building has debt? That was not an invitation. Understood. You may come here tomorrow morning at 7 and eat breakfast at the counter. They will be here before preschool. You may introduce yourself as Damian. If they ask questions, you answer only what I allow. Only Damian? Yes. And if they ask why I came? You say you made a very old mistake and their mother is deciding whether you are safe enough to know better. For the first time that morning, his control cracked openly. Safe enough, he said. Yes. Not good enough. Good is vague. Safe is measurable. He stared at her, and the silence between them became a room they had both once lived in. Savannah remembered his hands on her waist in a kitchen full of late-night light. She remembered him listening when she told him about her mother's debts, remembered his mouth near her ear when he said he had never been trusted with anything fragile that did not belong to the family. Now the fragile things had names he had not earned. What do I need to measure? He asked. Consistency. Respect for their routines. The ability to hear no without punishing the person who said it. The waitress station bell rang, saving them both. Savannah rose. Read the rest. I have pancakes to sell. He looked down at the folder again, but when she walked away, she felt his gaze follow her not with possession, not with suspicion, but with the terrible focus of a man discovering that the woman he had lost had been building a life more disciplined than his empire. Chapter 4. Damian arrived the next morning at 6:58. Savannah hated that he was punctual. She had wanted one easy flaw, one simple failure she could point to when the old part of her heart tried to remember how he had once looked at her over coffee. Instead, he parked legally, entered alone, and sat at the counter like a man who understood he had been given a chair, not a place. The twins burst through the side door at 7:10 with Aunt June behind them. Lily came first, wearing yellow leggings, a purple coat, and the red rain boots because the sky was threatening rain again and she believed boots worked best as warnings. Ethan followed with his backpack zipped to the top and one hand on the wall, counting tiles as he moved. Damian saw them before they saw him. Savannah saw him see them. He did not stand. That mattered. Men who wanted to own a room always stood when something important entered, forcing everyone else to respond to their height. Damian remained seated, both hands around his coffee mug, and waited. Lily spotted him halfway to the counter. Bad parking man. Lily, Savannah said. But he was. We use names when we have them. Lily considered this, then pointed at Damian with a mitten. Do you have a name? Damian, he said. That is serious. So I have been told. Ethan stood slightly behind his sister, studying Damian's face with the deep, silent concentration that had made preschool teachers either adore him or worry about their own secrets. You came back, Ethan said. I did. Mama said some people say things and don't do them. Your mama is right. Are you some people? Savannah turned away to pour orange juice because if she looked at Damian too closely, she might forgive the wrong thing at the wrong time. I have been, Damian said. I am trying not to be. Ethan weighed this answer. That's not a promise. No. It is a report. The boy nodded, apparently satisfied by the difference. Lily climbed onto a stool 2 spaces away from Damian and inspected his suit. You wear funeral clothes. Lily. He does. Damian looked down at himself. I have been told that too. Do you have inside shoes? No. Mama says outside shoes carry outside problems. Then I will be careful where I step. Savannah set 2 plates on the counter harder than necessary. Pancakes. Blueberries for Ethan. Strawberries for Lily. Syrup on the side because civilization matters. Mama, Lily said, Damian needs pancakes. Damian is capable of ordering his own breakfast. Damian looked at the menu board, though Savannah knew he had already read every word when he entered. Pancakes, please. Plain, blueberry, or strawberry? What do you recommend? For you? Plain. Less chance of dramatic feedback. Lily giggled. Ethan hid a smile behind his juice. Damian accepted plain pancakes like a man accepting a court sentence. When Savannah placed the plate before him, his fingers brushed hers for one brief second. Nothing more than accidental contact. Nothing more than skin remembering a language neither of them had given it permission to speak. She pulled back first. He let her. That was the first irreversible signal. Not the touch. Not the heat that moved through her despite every sensible wall she had built. The signal was that Damian Bellucci, who had once responded to fear by controlling everything in reach, felt her retreat and did not follow. He lowered his hand to the counter, spread his fingers once, and stayed still. Aunt June watched from the register with the expression of a woman who had survived 2 husbands, 1 hurricane, and Savannah's early 20s. She waited until the children were busy eating before leaning near Savannah. He's prettier than I expected, she murmured. Do not start. I did not say trustworthy. I said pretty. June. Fine. He's pretty in a felony way. Savannah choked on a laugh and hated herself for it. Damian's eyes flicked toward her, and something in his face eased for one unguarded second. It was small enough that no one else would have named it, but Savannah had once lived on the difference between his public stillness and private warmth. Then the bell over the door rang, and the morning changed. Victor Bellucci entered Reed's diner with 2 lawyers, 1 smile, and the confidence of a man who believed every room had a price. Savannah knew him at once. He was older, his silver hair thinner, his skin more polished, but his eyes held the same velvet contempt. He looked at her as if 5 years had been an inconvenience he planned to correct before lunch. Savannah Reed, he said. Still serving coffee. Damian stood. Every person in the diner felt it. The air did not get louder, it got organized around danger. Lily's fork paused above her pancakes. Ethan slid one hand toward his sister's sleeve. Savannah moved first. She stepped between the children and the room, then pointed toward the kitchen. Boots. Back door. Aunt June. The children obeyed because she had never made safety sound like panic. Aunt June appeared behind them, calm and fast, and guided them through the swinging door. Only after they were out of sight did Savannah turn to Victor. You are not welcome here. Victor smiled wider. I came to resolve a family matter. You are standing in a diner, not a chapel or a courthouse. By prior leave. One lawyer opened a folder. Ms. Reed, our client is prepared to make a generous arrangement regarding the minors. Damian's voice cut through the room. Your client? The lawyer went pale, apparently realizing too late that the man he thought he served and the man he feared were not aligned. Victor lifted one hand. Damian, this is exactly why I came. This woman has had 5 years to shape a story around those children. We need tests, custody controls, financial silence, and dash. Savannah picked up the coffee pot. Not to pour. To place it on the counter between them with a heavy glass thud that made everyone look at her instead of him. No one discusses my children like inventory in my diner, she said. If you say financial silence again, I will charge you for coffee and throw you out before it cools. Victor laughed softly. Still dramatic. Still innocent. Damian turned his head toward Victor. Did you intercept her letters? You were grieving betrayal. Answer. I protected the family. Savannah felt the room tilt. There it was, not a confession clean enough for court, but a crack wide enough for truth to breathe through. Damian took one step toward his uncle, and every old story about him seemed to rise from the floor. Men like Victor had survived because Damian could be aimed. For 5 years, Victor had counted on that. Savannah reached out and caught Damian's sleeve. The diner held its breath. Damian looked down at her hand on his arm. Not here, she said. He stole 5 years. And you will not give him this room too. Victor's smile faltered because he understood before Damian did. Savannah was not protecting him. She was protecting her children's breakfast counter from becoming the place where their father turned violent. Damian's hand opened. Leave, he told Victor. Victor's face hardened. You are making a mistake. No, Damian said, eyes still on Savannah. I made one 5 years ago. This is what correction feels like. Chapter 5. By noon, everyone in Port Mercy knew 3 things. First, the Bellucci family had visited Reed's diner. Second, Savannah Reed had threatened a lawyer with coffee. Third, Damian Bellucci had left his uncle standing on the sidewalk in the rain, which was either a miracle, a death sentence, or both, depending on who was telling it. Savannah cared about none of that. She cared that Lily refused tomato soup because Uncle Bad's smile looked like tomatoes when he got mad, and Ethan had spent 30 minutes lining up sugar packets into 2 armies, one labeled door people and one labeled safe people. She cared that children processed fear through play, which meant adults had to be careful what scenes they gave them. Damian understood more than she expected. He did not return that afternoon. He did not call the diner. He sent no flowers, no toys, no cash, no security men pretending to be customers. At 5 o'clock, a single envelope arrived through Aunt June's lawyer, addressed to Savannah and no one else. Inside was a copy of a court filing against Victor's shell company, a written statement acknowledging that Damian had received evidence of intercepted correspondence, and a note in his handwriting. I will not turn your life into a battlefield without your consent. Tell me what is useful. I will do only that. Savannah read the note 3 times, then tucked it into the old cookie tin where she kept rent receipts, birth certificates, and the first drawings the twins had made of their family. Lily's drawing had 3 people and a very large pancake. Ethan's had 2 doors, one locked, one open. At 7:30, while the children colored at the kitchen table above the diner, someone knocked at the back stairs. Savannah checked the peephole. Damian stood alone, holding nothing. That startled her more than flowers would have. She opened the door 6 inches. You were not invited. I know. This is not how boundaries work. I know that too. Then why are you here? He looked tired. Not weak, not defeated, but tired in a way power could not fix. The black coat was gone. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his forearms, and rain had dampened his hair. For the first time since his return, he looked like the man who had once sat on her kitchen floor assembling a second-hand bookshelf because Savannah had refused to let him buy a new one. I wanted to ask whether the children were all right after this morning, he said. They are processing. Is that polite for not all right? It is accurate for 5-year-olds. He nodded. And you? The question was too simple. Savannah did not have a ready weapon for it. Also processing. May I stand here for 1 minute and hear the answer if that changes? She should have closed the door. She should have reminded him that showing up uninvited was not useful, even when his voice had finally learned humility. Instead, from the kitchen table, Lily shouted, Mama, Ethan says blue is not a storm color, but he is wrong in his heart. Ethan answered, blue is an afterstorm color. Storms can be blue if they are fancy. Damian's expression shifted at the sound of them. It was hunger, Savannah realized, but not the kind that takes. The kind that stands outside a bakery window and understands it has no right to break the glass. 1 minute, she said. She stepped into the hall and pulled the door mostly closed behind her. Damian looked at the chipped paint, the narrow stairs, the laundry basket near her foot, the children's boots lined by the mat. The red rain boots were there, soles clean, toes pointed toward the door like tiny guards. They wear them everywhere, he asked. Lily says red boots make puddles respect her. And Ethan? Ethan says the color makes them easy to find in a hurry. Damian lowered his gaze. He thinks in exits. Yes. Because of me? Because children notice what adults try to hide. He has never met you until now, but he has lived with my caution. The words hurt him. She saw it and did not soften them. Tell me what they need, he said. From you? From anyone. From me if I am allowed. Savannah crossed her arms because otherwise she might reach for the railing, and she refused to look less steady than she was. They need routines kept. They need adults to explain changes before making them. Lily needs choices that feel big but are actually safe. Ethan needs people not to lie just because they think he is too quiet to hear it. And you? I need men to stop asking what I need as if the answer will absolve them. He accepted that too, which irritated her. I cannot change 5 years, he said. No. I can make the next 5 less expensive. Money is not the first debt. I know. Do you? He looked at the red boots again. No. But I am starting where I can count. Tomorrow is breakfast. Friday is the preschool art show if you allow me to stand in the back. Saturday, Lily has a puddle walk because the weather report says rain and she appears to have diplomatic relations with water. Ethan likes the library at 10 because the building has 4 exits and a quiet corner. They sleep at 8:30 unless Lily negotiates. Savannah stared at him. Aunt June, he said, answering the question before she asked. She told me after threatening to pour soup in my shoes if I used the information badly. She would. I believed her. Savannah wanted to laugh again. She hated that grief and anger were not strong enough to kill every tender reflex. They only taught tenderness to keep its eyes open. You cannot schedule your way into fatherhood, she said. No. But I can stop arriving like weather. That was too close to understanding. Behind the door, Ethan's voice rose. Mama, Lily is coloring the mafia man with purple hair. Lily shouted, he looked sad. Purple helps. Damian went completely still. Savannah closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, he was looking at the door as if it had become a church. They know the word mafia, he asked. They hear things. Also Mr. L calls every man in a black suit mafia, insurance, or both. Savannah. They know you are dangerous. They do not know why. I have not made you a bedtime monster, Damian, if that is what you are afraid of. I am afraid of what I deserve. Good. Start there. He almost smiled, and this time she did not hate noticing. He reached into his pocket slowly, then stopped before removing anything. May I give you something? Depends. It is not money. Proceed with caution. He took out a small paper card. No velvet box, no black card, no glittering solution. It was a library card application, folded once, with his signature already on the sponsor line but no address filled in. Aunt June said Ethan needs an adult sponsor for the expanded children's archive because the library rules are archaic. I sign nothing else. If you approve, you fill in what belongs there. If not, you throw it away. Savannah took the paper. The gesture should not have mattered. It was minor, almost mundane, but that was why it pierced. Damian had not tried to buy the library. He had not called the mayor. He had not sent a donation large enough to rename the children's wing. He had signed 1 line and left the rest to her. This is useful, she said. His breath changed. Good. Do not look so relieved. Useful is not forgiven. I know. You keep saying that. Because I am learning the difference between knowing as a weapon and knowing as work. Savannah looked at him then, really looked, and saw the man beneath the empire trying to stand still long enough for her anger to finish speaking. It was not enough. It was not nearly enough. But for the first time in 5 years, she could imagine enough as a road rather than a myth. Your minute is over, she said. He stepped back at once. Good night, Savannah. Good night, Damian. She closed the door, leaned her forehead against it, and allowed herself one breath that did not belong to survival. Chapter 6. The art show was held in the preschool gym, which smelled of tempera paint, floor polish, and the kind of crackers adults pretended children liked. Damian arrived in a navy suit instead of black. Savannah noticed because every mother in the room noticed. He still looked like a mafia boss, because no color could remove the way people instinctively made space for him, but at least he did not look as if he had come to foreclose on the alphabet. He stood in the back as promised. Lily saw him and waved both hands with such wild generosity that she nearly knocked over a paper tree. Ethan saw him, nodded once, and returned to adjusting his display label so the corners aligned. Savannah watched Damian receive those 2 different welcomes and not mishandle either. He came, Lily announced to her teacher. He is learning not to park wrong. The teacher looked at Savannah with professional terror. Family friend, Savannah said. Complicated friend, Ethan corrected. Damian heard that too. He did not flinch. The children's project was called My Safe Place. Lily had painted the diner in red, yellow, and a heroic amount of purple. Everyone in the picture had boots. Ethan's picture was more precise. the diner from above, with the front door, back door, kitchen exit, and alley gate marked in blue. In the corner, he had drawn 2 red boots beside a rectangle labeled MAT. Damian studied both pictures for a long time. "You marked every exit," he said to Ethan. Ethan nodded. "So people don't bump into each other when they leave. That is good planning. Mama says planning is not the same as being scared." "Your mama is right." Lily tugged Damian's sleeve. Savannah tensed, then forced herself not to intervene when Damian lowered himself to one knee, bringing his eyes level with hers while keeping his hands visible. "Why do you wear serious clothes?" Lily asked. "Because serious men taught me serious clothes made people listen." "Do they?" "Sometimes. Mama listens in pancake clothes." "Your mama could make kings listen in pancake clothes." Savannah turned sharply toward the refreshment table, but not fast enough to hide the heat in her face. Aunt June, who had come for moral support and free cookies, made a small satisfied noise. Then Damian did something worse. He looked at Savannah not with apology, not with grief, but with open admiration. In a room full of finger paintings and paper suns, the head of the Bellucci family looked at the woman he had once cast out as if she were the only sovereign present. That was the second romance signal, and this time she could not pretend it belonged only to the past. The trouble began near the exit. A man Savannah did not know waited beside the coat rack, speaking too softly into a phone. His suit was not expensive enough to be Bellucci and not cheap enough to be harmless. When Savannah moved closer, she heard Lily's name. She did not wait for Damian. Savannah crossed the gym, picked up a tray of paper cups from the refreshment table, and accidentally spilled lemonade across the man's shoes and phone. The phone hit the floor. The screen lit before he could grab it, showing a message thread with Victor's name at the top and a photograph of Ethan's exit map. The man cursed. Savannah stepped on the phone. Every parent in the gym turned. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said, without sounding sorry at all. "These paper cups are slippery when someone is photographing children." Damian appeared beside her, not in front of her. That mattered too. He did not block her from the room or take the scene away. He stood at her shoulder, a dark, controlled presence, and let the room see that Savannah had acted first. "Who sent you?" Damian asked. The man looked at him and lost color. "No one." Savannah pressed her heel harder on the phone. The screen cracked. "Try again." "I have cleaned gum from under diner tables with more spine than that answer." Several mothers gasped. Aunt June whispered, "That's my girl." Damian's mouth moved. This time it was definitely almost a smile. The man tried to step around them. Damian did not touch him. He only said, "If you move toward the children, you will spend the rest of your life missing ordinary choices." The man stopped. Savannah bent, picked up the broken phone with a napkin, and handed it to Damian. "Evidence. Chain of custody is probably wrecked, but the message is visible." "You know chain of custody?" "I watch crime shows while folding towels." "Of course you do." The police arrived because the preschool director had more courage than anyone expected and called them at the first mention of photographed children. Damian cooperated with a politeness so exact it frightened the responding officer into sweating. Savannah gave a clear statement. Lily and Ethan stayed with Aunt June near the mural wall, safe and distracted by cookies. Only after the man was taken out did Damian turn to Savannah. "You stepped on his phone." "Yes." "You did not wait for me." "No." "Good." The word moved through her before she could guard against it. Not because she needed praise, but because once, 5 years ago, Damian had punished her for being calm under accusation. Now he had watched her act, watched her choose, watched her protect their children with lemonade and nerve, and he had called it good. "Do not sound proud," she said. "I am proud." "You do not have the right." "Then I will hold the feeling without claiming the right." That answer was unfairly good. Savannah looked away first. Chapter 7. Victor summoned the family council 2 days later. He did it through lawyers, old allies, and a priest who owed him money, which told Savannah everything she needed to know about the shape of his fear. Damian received the notice at the diner during lunch. He read it once, folded it, and placed it beside his untouched coffee. "They want blood tests," he said. Savannah refilled ketchup bottles. "Of course they do. They want temporary guardianship review." The bottle in her hand stopped. "They can want in one hand and count ketchup packets in the other." "That is not the phrase." "It is in my diner." "Savannah." "No." He looked up. "I have not asked anything." "You were about to suggest handling it quietly." "I was about to suggest bringing my lawyer." "Good. Bring 2. I will bring receipts." Damian leaned back, studying her face. "You want to attend?" "Those men discussed my children without me once. They will not do it again." "It will be ugly." "I own a diner. Yesterday a tourist asked whether our clam chowder was vegan." "That is not the same danger." No, but it prepared my patience. He almost smiled again, then sobered. They will try to paint you as opportunistic. I have tax records, hospital bills, returned letters, and 5 years of unpaid child support I never asked for. Let them try. They will ask why you did not come sooner. And I will ask why your family mailroom has better security than your conscience. For a moment, he only looked at her. I love that about you. The ketchup bottle slipped. Savannah caught it before it hit the floor, but red sauce splashed across her apron in a shape that made table 5 applaud. Careful, she said, too sharply. I said loved, not love. That was not safer. No. The room around them continued doing diner things. Forks clicked. Coffee poured. Mr. L shouted at a delivery driver. But between Savannah and Damian, everything narrowed to the narrow counter space where old love, new evidence, and dangerous honesty stood too close together. I am not asking you to forgive me because I loved you, Damian said. I am telling you because it was true then, and avoiding true things made me stupid enough to lose you. You did not lose me like keys. No. I threw away the map and blamed the door. Savannah stared at him despite herself. Have you been rehearsing? No. I have been awake. That, she believed. Damian had always slept badly when guilt found an address. The council met in a private room above an old restaurant near the harbor, the kind of place where portraits of dead men watched living men repeat their mistakes. Savannah wore a dark green dress, low heels, and no jewelry except the small silver locket Aunt June had given her after the twins were born. Inside were 2 curls of baby hair, one dark, one almost black. Damian arrived separately because she insisted. We do not enter as a couple, she told him outside the building. What do we enter as? The woman you wronged and the man trying not to make it worse. Accurate. The family council included 8 men, 3 women, 1 lawyer, and Victor at the head of the table despite having no right to sit there. He smiled when Savannah entered, but the smile thinned when Damian did not take the chair beside him. Instead, Damian remained standing until Savannah chose a seat, then stood behind and slightly to her right. Not in front. Not above. With. The first lawyer began with phrases like best interest, uncertain paternity, and financial stability. Savannah let him speak for 4 minutes because interrupting too early could look emotional, and she had not survived 5 years to hand them a stereotype. Then she opened her folder. Before anyone says another word about my children's best interest, we will establish which adults in this room have already acted against it. Victor laughed. This is not a diner, Ms. Reed. You cannot threaten us with coffee. No, Savannah said. Here I brought paper. She passed copies down the table. Returned letters. Hospital bills. The forged transfer analysis. The preschool phone incident report. The internal routing stamp. Victor's shell company records. She did not shout. She did not tremble. Her voice remained steady because competence was not the absence of pain, it was pain made useful. For 5 years, she said, I raised Ethan and Lily without asking this family for a penny, a guard, a favor, or a name. I am not here because I need your approval. I am here because you tried to turn my children into a problem to be managed, and I am done letting men with clean cuffs make dirty decisions in private rooms. One of the women at the table looked down, hiding a smile. Victor's face hardened. You expect us to believe you kept those children from their father out of principle? No, Savannah said. I kept them from a house where a forged signature mattered more than my voice. Damian inhaled behind her. Victor saw the opening and struck. Damian acted on the evidence he had. Savannah turned slightly, not to Victor but to Damian. Did you? The room became still. Damian could have defended himself. 5 years ago, he would have. He could have said the evidence had been overwhelming, that betrayal had been plausible, that enemies had been circling, that Savannah's calm had looked like guilt because he had been taught innocent people panicked. All of those things might have been partially true. He said none of them. No, he said. I acted on fear and pride. Victor's smile vanished. Damian looked at the table, then at Savannah. I had evidence placed in front of me by people I trusted because trusting them was easier than trusting a woman who asked me to become better than my training. I did not ask the question that mattered. I did not protect her. I exiled her while she was carrying my children. No one moved. Ethan and Lily are mine, he continued, if Savannah permits me the honor of becoming theirs. Until then, no one in this room will speak of guardianship, custody, blood, money, or family reputation as if she is absent from the sentence. Victor stood. You would let this waitress dictate Bellucci's succession? Savannah stood too. Diner owner, she corrected. Mother. Witness. And the only person in this room who kept your bloodline alive without using it as a bargaining chip. That was the moment the room shifted. Not because Savannah had won every legal point. Not because Damian looked ready to destroy his uncle. The shift happened because everyone at the table understood that Victor had built his argument on the assumption that Savannah would either cry or beg. She did neither. She stood there with a folder, a ketchup stain faintly visible near the hem of her dress because Lily had hugged her before she left, and she looked more legitimate than every portrait on the wall. Damian removed a document from inside his jacket. Effective immediately, he said, Victor Bellucci is removed from all family financial authority pending investigation. Any member who contacts Savannah, her children, her staff, her vendors, or her landlord without written consent from her attorney will answer to me legally first and personally second. You cannot rewrite tradition because you feel guilty, Victor snapped. Watch me. Savannah should have hated the thrill that ran through her. She did not need a man to defend her. She had just proven that. But there was a specific female fantasy, one she had denied herself because it seemed dangerous, in watching a powerful man finally put his power behind her truth instead of over her voice. Damian was not saving her. He was choosing her version of events in public, at cost, in front of people who mattered to him. That mattered differently. Chapter 8. The twins learned Damian's full name on a Sunday with clear weather. Savannah chose the beach because open spaces gave Ethan fewer corners to count, and Lily liked any place where she could test whether boots worked against waves. Damian arrived with a picnic basket he had clearly not packed himself but had wisely allowed someone with sense to assemble. There were sandwiches, grapes, napkins, and 2 small boxes of plain cookies. No toys, Savannah noted. You said no gifts. Cookies are gifts. Aunt June said cookies are logistics. Aunt June is becoming a problem. She offered to consult. Savannah laughed before she could stop herself. Damian looked at her as if the sound had altered the weather. Do not stare, she said. I am trying not to. Try harder. I will fail quietly. She looked away, but she was smiling now, and both of them knew it. The children ran ahead to the wet sand. Lily wore the red rain boots despite the sun because she believed boots were a personality, not a tool. Ethan carried a small notebook where he planned to record shell shapes. Damian walked beside Savannah with his hands empty, matching her pace without comment. Today, she said, you may tell them your last name if they ask. He stopped walking. Savannah. Do not make it ceremonial. Lily will get bored and Ethan will think you are selling something. Thank you. This is not forgiveness. I know. It is access. I know. If you say I know one more time, I will push you into the tide. Understood. Lily saved him by racing back with a shell. Damian, this shell has a hole. Is it broken or fancy? Both, perhaps. Mama says both is allowed. Your mama is usually right. Only usually? Savannah asked. Damian's eyes did not leave hers. Always when it matters. Ethan approached more slowly. What is your other name? Damian lowered himself onto the sand, not caring about his trousers. Bellucci. Ethan wrote it down. That is a lot of letters. It is. Do we have that name? Savannah held her breath. Damian looked at her first. Not for permission to answer however he liked, but for the boundary. She gave him the smallest nod. You have your mother's name, he said. Reed. It is a good name. Ethan studied him. Do you want us to have yours? Damian's throat moved. One day, if you want it and your mother agrees, I would be honored. But names are not stickers. I do not get to put mine on you because I arrived late. Lily sat down hard in the sand. Can I have both? Lily Reed Bellucci sounds like a princess who sues people. Savannah covered her mouth. Damian looked solemn. A formidable princess. What does formidable mean? People should think carefully before being rude to you. Lily nodded. Then yes. Ethan looked at Savannah. Would our names change our cubbies? Only if you wanted them to, Savannah said. Then not yet. Not yet is a complete answer, Damian said. Ethan wrote that down too. They ate on a blanket near the dunes. Damian listened more than he spoke, which was wise because Lily had many theories about gulls and Ethan had a detailed concern about whether sandwiches were triangles by nature or by adult interference. Savannah watched the 3 of them with an ache so complex it felt like weather moving through a house with too many windows. When Lily ran toward a shallow tide pool, Damian started to rise. Savannah touched his wrist. Wait. He stopped instantly. She knows the line, Savannah said. Lily stopped exactly where the dry sand darkened, waved triumphantly, and shouted, I am not drowning dramatically. Good to know, Damian called back, his voice rough. Savannah kept her fingers around his wrist a second longer than necessary. He looked down at her hand, then at her face. The old heat was there, but changed by grief, discipline, and the presence of 2 children arguing with the ocean. It was not the reckless heat of hotel hallways and midnight apartments. It was slower, more dangerous because it had learned patience. You can still tell me to leave, he said. I know. You can tell me every day. I know. And if one day you don't? Savannah looked toward the children. Then you still wait until I invite you closer. I can do that. Can you? I am not good at waiting. Then finally learn something useful. He laughed once, quiet and startled. It was the first real laugh she had heard from him since his return, and it broke something open in her that was not forgiveness but might, eventually, become trust. That night, after the children slept, Damian sat on the wet bench outside the diner as promised. It had rained again, a short summer burst that left the air smelling of pavement and salt. Savannah found him there with his coat folded beside him, his shirt sleeves damp, his hands resting empty on his knees. You know there are chairs inside, she said. I was not invited inside after closing. You are becoming irritatingly trainable. I am told consistency is measurable. She sat beside him, leaving a careful foot of space. The street was quiet. The red boots stood on the mat inside the diner door, visible through the glass, two small bright shapes in the dimness. What do they need from me before they know my name? He asked. Savannah watched the boots, not him. They know your name now. Before they carry it. The distinction settled between them. Consistency, she said. Not protection theater. Define protection theater. Showing up with guards but not remembering library day. Paying bills but not learning what Lily eats when she's nervous. Threatening Victor but not telling Ethan the truth in words he can survive. Acting like being feared is the same as being safe. He nodded once. And consistency? Breakfast when you say breakfast. No gifts unless agreed. No disappearing because guilt makes you uncomfortable. No demanding affection because biology finally knocked on your door. And for you? Savannah breathed in slowly. The answer felt harder because it did not hide behind motherhood. For me, you stop treating patience as punishment. You ask before fixing. You tell me what is happening in your world before it reaches my doorstep. And you understand that if I choose to have coffee with you, it does not erase the room where you told me to disappear. Damian's voice was low. I will spend the rest of my life hating that room. Good. Hate it usefully. He turned toward her. Have coffee with me. That sounded like a command. Please have coffee with me. That sounded like a man learning punctuation. Savannah. She looked at him then. The streetlight cut shadows across his face, emphasizing the lines 5 years had carved there. He was still dangerous. He would always be dangerous. But tonight the danger did not aim at her, it stood guard around the possibility that she might one day choose him again. Not tonight, she said. His expression did not close. Tomorrow? Maybe. I will take maybe. You will not take it. You will be given it temporarily and behave accordingly. This time his smile came fully, small and tired and real. Yes, Savannah. Chapter 9. Victor did not go quietly. Men like him rarely did. They preferred rooms where whispers could become policies before honest people found chairs. But Damian had learned something from Savannah, and for once he did not try to solve the problem by becoming the most frightening man in the room. He became the most documented one. He brought accountants. He brought lawyers. He brought the returned letters, the forged signature report, the preschool phone incident, and 3 former employees Victor had underpaid badly enough to make truth feel profitable. Savannah brought coffee in a steel thermos, 2 folders of her own, and Aunt June, who wore pearls and carried a handbag heavy enough to qualify as a civic warning. The final hearing happened in a family office above the Bellucci shipping building. It was not a court, but it had consequences. Victor had called in old loyalties. Damian called in records. Savannah called in memory. You have no standing here, Victor told her when she entered. Savannah placed the red rain boots on the conference table. They were clean, dry, and absurd under the chandelier. Every person stared. These are standing, she said. Mine is extra. Damian looked at the boots, then at her, and if they had been alone she might have smiled. Instead, she opened her folder. For 5 years, those boots walked through a life your choices shaped. Preschool. Flu shots. Grocery stores. Emergency rooms. Library mornings. Diner nights. They stood at doors while I decided whether the world outside was safe enough. So before anyone in this room discusses legacy, inheritance, or Bellucci blood, you will look at the daily evidence of what your secrecy cost. No one laughed. Victor tried contempt first. Atuchingprop. A measurable record, Savannah said. Size changes, dates, receipts. If you want sentiment, talk to someone less organized. She passed around copies of receipts for children's shoes, medical visits, daycare fees, diner repairs, and legal consultations. Not because she wanted reimbursement as the main point, but because numbers forced powerful men to stop pretending women's labor was atmosphere. This is what absence costs when the absent man is rich enough to have prevented it and proud enough not to check his own house, she said. Damian stood beside her chair, not behind it this time. Beside. The Bellucci family will repay every documented expense with interest, he said. Savannah turned. No. The room stirred. Damian looked at her. No. You will place the money in separate trusts for Ethan and Lily, controlled by a trustee I approve, with no family conditions attached. My rent, my diner, and my life are not for back purchase. One of the older women at the table murmured, good. Damian nodded. Done. Victor's face reddened. You let her dictate terms in front of the council? No, Damian said. I listened to the mother of my children in front of the council. Savannah felt the sentence move through the room like a door opening. Then Victor made his final mistake. Your children, he said, voice sharp with age and desperation. If they are even yours. We have only her word and her little boots. Damian went still. Savannah saw the old violence rise. She also saw him master it, not because he lacked the desire to cross the table, but because 2 red rain boots sat between them like a promise. He did not touch Victor. He did not raise his voice. You will never speak about them that way again, he said. Victor smiled, thinking control had won. Savannah opened the last page in her folder. Paternity reports are already complete. Damian turned to her sharply. You did not ask me for one, she said. I did not need your permission to protect my children from future courtroom theater. Aunt June's lawyer arranged it through a private lab using the sample from the coffee cup you left at the diner after breakfast, which is legally messy enough that I will not use it unless forced, but scientifically clear enough to end this room's little performance. Aunt June lifted one finger. I sanitized nothing. For the record. Savannah continued. Ethan and Lily are Damian's children. More importantly, they are mine. Any man in this room who can only respect the first fact will not be permitted near the second. For 3 seconds, Damian looked at Savannah as if she had just rewritten gravity. You knew, he said. I knew before the report. Biology was never the question. Behavior was. Victor sat down slowly. His empire of suggestions had run out of fog. By the end of the hour, he was stripped of authority, his accounts were frozen pending legal review, and 3 men who had supported him discovered retirement could arrive very suddenly when Damian Bellucci signed documents with a steady hand. But the moment that mattered to Savannah came after the others left. Damian remained in the conference room, the red boots between them. You could have used the report to force recognition immediately, he said. I could have. Why didn't you? Because I did not want you to choose them because a lab made it impossible not to. Savannah. I wanted to see whether you could choose them before certainty made you comfortable. He looked down at the boots. When he spoke, his voice was rough enough to make her look away. I choose them. Good. I choose you too. Her heart lurched, but her voice stayed steady. That is not a term on the table. I know. It is not a demand. Then what is it? A truth I should have had the courage to say when truth still had a home. The room felt too large around them. Savannah picked up the boots because she needed something to do with her hands. Truth can visit, she said. It does not move in without references. His mouth softened. What references does it need? Breakfast. Library day. No missed calls when you say you will answer. No secrets that affect my doorstep. No using the children to reach me. No using me to forgive yourself. And coffee? Maybe coffee. Tomorrow? You are persistent. I am trainable. She laughed then, helplessly, and this time there was no ketchup bottle to hide behind. Chapter 10. 3 weeks later, Damian knew that Lily liked her eggs scrambled but would trade them for pancakes if blueberries were involved. He knew Ethan preferred the library side entrance because the front door squeaked, and he knew not to call that fear. He knew bath time was not negotiable, story time could be negotiated only by one book, and Aunt June's soup threats were not metaphorical. He missed nothing. Savannah did not praise him for basic decency. That would have been an insult to them both. But on the 22nd morning, when Rain returned to Port Mercy and Lily could not find her red boots, Damian found them under the diner office couch, where Ethan had placed them after deciding the floor near the door was too splashable. He brought them to the counter without ceremony. Lily held out one foot. You can help if you know the bunny ears way. Damian looked at Savannah. Do you? She asked. I know 6 knots for maritime restraint and 3 for field sutures. So no. Lily sighed with devastating pity. Mama, he is not ready. Teach him, Savannah said. Damian crouched on the diner floor in a charcoal suit while Lily demonstrated the bunny ears method with the solemn patience of a tiny instructor. Ethan observed from the booth, correcting sequence errors. Mr. L came out of the kitchen specifically to witness the feared Damian Bellucci being told his loops were emotionally uneven. Damian listened. He tied the left boot badly, untied it without complaint, and tried again. On the 3rd attempt, the bow held. Lily inspected it, tugged both loops, and nodded. Acceptable. High praise, Savannah said. She is exacting, Damian replied. Lily hopped down. Now say the thing. He looked up. What thing? Mama says when people help family, they don't make a parade, but they do say thank you. Damian looked at Savannah from the floor. The diner seemed to pause around them, though maybe that was only her own breath. Thank you, he said to Lily. Lily patted his shoulder. You're learning. Ethan slid out of the booth and stood beside his sister. Are you coming to library day? Yes. Even if it rains? Especially if it rains. Mama says especially is a promise word. Damian looked at Savannah. Then especially. Ethan nodded and walked away, apparently having granted a temporary permit. Savannah waited until the children were in the kitchen arguing with Aunt June about whether toast could be triangular without becoming fancy. Then she set a mug of coffee on the counter in front of Damian. You asked 3 weeks ago, she said. He stood slowly. For coffee. Yes. Is this coffee? Do not make me regret it. He took the mug, but he did not drink. Savannah, if this is only coffee, I will be grateful for only coffee. It is coffee. All right. And maybe dinner after the art fundraiser next Friday. He closed his eyes for one brief second. All right. Not at one of your restaurants. No. Not with bodyguards at the next table pretending to read menus. No. And if you buy the restaurant afterward, I will throw you into the harbor. Understood. She leaned against the counter, suddenly aware of every inch between them. The diner was not empty, not romantic, not quiet in the way old fantasies promised. It smelled of coffee, toast, rain, and disinfectant. Somewhere in the back, Lily was singing a song about boots conquering puddles. Ethan was correcting the rhyme scheme. It was not the life Savannah had imagined when she first loved Damian. It was better because it was real enough to require work. I am still angry, she said. I know. She lifted an eyebrow. He corrected himself. I understand some of it. I expect the rest will teach me. Better. I am still in love with you, he said. The words entered the room without force. They did not grab, corner, or demand. They stood there, dangerous and patient, waiting for her to decide what they were allowed to become. Savannah looked at the man who had once told her to disappear forever and had spent 3 weeks proving he could now appear on time, stand outside when asked, kneel to tie a child's boot, and tell the truth in rooms where lies would have served him better. I loved you badly once, she said. Pain crossed his face. I know. Damian. I understand. Good. Because if I love you again, it will be differently. Slowly. With rules. With doors I can close. His hand tightened around the mug. And if I am invited through one? You wipe your shoes. For a moment, he only stared at her. Then he laughed, low and quiet, and the sound warmed something in her she had not realized was still cold. The bell over the diner door rang as the morning rush began. Savannah went back to work because love did not stop pancakes from burning. Damian moved to the end of the counter, out of her way, exactly where she had told him he was allowed to sit. He drank his coffee. He watched the children through the kitchen pass through when they called his name. He did not reach for more than the day had given. At noon, rain hammered the sidewalk again. Lily marched to the door in her red boots, then turned back. Damian, puddle inspection. Savannah opened her mouth to object, but Lily added, Mama can come too. She is the boss of outside rules. Damian looked at Savannah. Well, she asked. I am waiting for the boss of outside rules. Ethan appeared with a clipboard made from a menu backer and a pencil stub. We need 3 adults because the alley puddle is suspicious. 3 adults? Damian asked. Mama, Aunt June, and you. The room went still in Savannah's chest. Not father. Not yet. Not family in the careless way adults like to rush children's hearts. But adult. Included. Named as part of the small expedition required to inspect a suspicious puddle on a rainy afternoon. Damian understood. His face changed with the effort of not making the moment too large for the child who had offered it. I would be honored, he said. Lily frowned. It is a puddle, not a wedding. Right. I would be prepared. Better. Aunt June emerged with an umbrella and a grin. I am supervising all of you. Savannah untied her apron. She took the red umbrella from the hook, checked the street, and opened the door. Rain smell rushed in, sharp and clean. Lily stepped out first, boots bright against the gray sidewalk. Ethan followed, careful and observant. Aunt June came behind them, muttering about damp knees. Damian waited until Savannah moved. That was what made her turn. 5 years ago, he had ordered her out of his life because waiting for truth had felt impossible. Now he stood in the doorway of her diner and waited for permission to step into rain with his children. Savannah held out her hand. It was not forgiveness in full. It was not surrender. It was not the end of the work. It was an invitation. Damian took it with the reverence of a dangerous man who had finally learned that the most precious things in his life could not be seized, bought, threatened, or inherited. They could only be earned, one kept promise at a time. Outside, Lily jumped into the first puddle and shouted, "Red boots win." Ethan marked something on his clipboard. Puddle depth acceptable. Aunt June laughed under the umbrella. Savannah looked at Damian through the rain, her hand still in his, and saw the future not as a grand rescue or a clean erasure, but as a sequence of ordinary mornings where he showed up, listened, learned, and stayed. That was less dramatic than the old love. It was harder too. It was also the first version she could trust. "Tomorrow is library day," she said. "Especially if it rains," Damian answered. And this time, when the children ran ahead in their red rain boots, Savannah let him walk beside her,